Welcome, everybody, to my podcast, Senior to Seniors, where I dive into the stories of seniors. I explore their unique experiences, discuss the real issues facing seniors today, and introduce you to those assisting seniors in their senior journey. I have the privilege to talk with some of the most interesting people in the world impacting the senior community. And today, I, with great pleasure, want to introduce you to Lee Elman. Lee Elman is going to provide us with maybe the most interesting podcast I've ever done. And I think it's going to touch people in a way that they haven't been touched before. And I want to take the time to welcome Lee, of course, and to tell you just a little bit about him so you know what Lee Elman is up to and why he's here today. Lee Elman is a seasoned storyteller, television producer, and tech visionary who is redefining how we preserve and connect with memory. Known for his early TV series like E-Force, Party Heat, and Low Ballers, Lee's work has always centered on real people and authentic experiences. Now, he's turned his passion for storytelling into a revolutionary platform, Eternal Diary. Eternal Diary is an AI-powered memory legacy app that allows users to engage in lifelike conversations with digital versions of their loved ones who have passed away. Using voice cloning, memory modeling, personal stories, and real-time data, Eternal Diary recreates the presence, personality, and emotional connection of the people we've lost, allowing them to appear in video calls, answer questions, offer advice, and continue sharing their stories. More than a tech product, Eternal Diary is a movement to redefine legacy, blending the power of AI with the soul of human connection. With a target audience spanning families, memory preservation advocates, and even grief therapists, Lee Elman's Eternal Diary is already being hailed as a game changer in AI and digital humanity. Lee, welcome to my podcast today. I'm so glad to have you here.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here for you and your audience.
Yeah, it's great. So listen, let's get started and let's dive right into this. So tell me, what inspired you? What inspired you to create Eternal Diary? And when did the idea shift from just a concept to a reality?
Well, like many people, when you lose somebody, I lost my father last August 2024. And after he passed, we all talk about that last picture, that last conversation that we had. And I started to document a lot of his stories that many people do, but you kind of put it into a Word document and you start doing less and less. It's very fresh when they pass. And so as I was writing more and talking to my children about grandpa, about talk to my brother about his experiences, and so I started really to document all these stories. And sometime around Thanksgiving, after it was our first Thanksgiving without my father. So by Friday night, I was kind of like felt that there was something that there was a void missing. And being in the group of your audience, going to turn 60 in September, so I'm not a young kid working in the tech field.
Mhm.
Um, I always taught myself how to do different pieces of technology. So what people use every day in when they're on their banking site, what's called a chatbot. And the chatbot basically is you could type back and forth with an AI person, but they have the data entered. So what I was able to do was enter my father's data that I typed up into a new chatbot. And I called it Robert after my father. And I started, after a couple of hours, I was able to get to the point where I could type and text, basically text with my father. And the they were real conversations based on his life, everything from his favorite pizza place to talking about the New York Giants, all in text form. And really, for me, and I tell this and anybody that I talk to, uh, there was one moment where I said to him, Jake's birthday is next week. Jake is my son. His birthday is June 6th. This is late November. And he writes back to me, no, Jake's birthday is in June. It's June 6th, the longest day. And that was something that he always said about my son's birthday. And once that happened, I knew that this was something very special. And I, for me, this is the only thing I can compare it to what it must have been like for technicians in NASA when man landed on the moon. And I mean that because suddenly there was this breakthrough that continued on somebody, I don't want to say their life, it's not their life, it's their legacy. And
Yes.
that people could continue communicating with the legacy of that person more than a picture, more than putting in a wedding video where you're looking at dad from 30 years ago. And so getting from the chatbot to the voice was a very quick process. We were
Mm-hmm.
able to clone his voice really from voice messages. That was the whole thing. So I say to the audience out there, if you have somebody who's older, record their voice. Now, it's the easiest thing you could do with your phone, and you'll have it forever. And that space is the cheapest that there is in the cloud, is
Sure.
just having audio. And
Yeah.
those pictures, don't worry about your selfies, worry about preserving the person, because when that last picture is taken, you're always going to remember that last picture. So I say that to anybody, you whether you would use Eternal Diary or not, it's great for you to have a legacy of that person.
Yeah. And you know, that picture, that obituary picture doesn't have to be that picture that you remember. I mean, that's that's burned into your memory, right? And
Yeah.
even that day, even the day of the funeral or the day of their death, that doesn't have to be that memory that be the only memory that's that stark in your mind. And so number one, it's important for people to save, you know, voice messages and their voice and to keep that. Secondly, pictures are super important, and pictures of your loved one or loved ones are very important to keep as well. And so tell us, how does Eternal Diary work on a technical level? What exactly is an eternal soul, and how is it created, Lee?
Okay, so without without going into the very high tech end of how we created avatars and then put skins on them, this is much more of once we were able to clone the voice, which is a very you hear it every day on TV. Most of commercials now are AI created voices. Um, so so we need about 2.5 minutes of audio, whether it be from voicemails. We've even taken from, like I said, a wedding video. Somebody said, all I have is my father made a speech at my wedding. And that's all I
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
have. And we could take that. It's not going to be perfect, but it is going to get very close. And it's not just the voice, it's the inflections. It's the way that they'll say certain words. And I will
Yes.
say for the audience out there, the hardest voice that we have been able that we're always having trouble with is the Boston accent. Boston accent. I can't tell you what, but it ranges. It like becomes a British accent at some point, and so we love the fine people of Boston, and we're going to get it right. But New York seems to work. Midwest twang works. Southern twang works. It's just something in the way that that the waveform form there. So once we have the voice, um, then the data the data creates that people tell the story. They could do it either via voice, they could type it all in, and then it will upload into the app and on a computer. So you could type it, you could talk it the way that I'm talking right now. If it's recording, you could just put it in there, and the system will convert everything that you say into data form, and it will tell the story. It doesn't have to be in any chronological order because you're having a conversation that's non-linear. One time you could be talking about the kids. One time you could be talking about when you were a child. You could be talking about vacation you took. So nothing is in a linear fashion. So you don't have to tell the person's story from the time they were a child to the time they were an adult and worry about, oh, I left this out. It's all pieces that are going to form into what we call a locker. And the same way that you have a little box with people's pictures or mementos, that's the family locker. And the family
Yeah.
will only have access to that locker.
It's
So,
just it's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
and so you could re-upload something at any time, like you going through an old picture and go, oh my God, I remember this birthday party like it was yesterday, and I want to tell about that. Upload. So it's not. So it's always going to be fluid. It's always going to. It changes as you want it to change. That you remember a story, you remember a road trip you took with the loved one. Um, so there's, for us, we look at this as very, for a lot of people, it will be very therapeutic. But getting back to the process, once we have all the information, we like to say it will be about a 3 week process to
Okay.
get us from the time that you start uploading. The voice is the easiest to clone. Then we'll take the pictures. And what we want to be able to do, and I'll get into the whole feed system that keeps it alive. But we always believe that when you're FaceTiming with somebody, that the day is different. So if you say, you know what, my dad always sat at the kitchen table in his white robe and to have his coffee. Well, if you call dad at 8 o'clock in the morning, he's going to be sitting wearing his white robe having the coffee because you've entered that in. So it's going to change how the person. So during the day, he may he may be in the if he wore a suit every day, we're going to know that. So him or her are going to appear during the day. If they sat by their pool, we'll do it.
That's where he could be.
So the image of the person that's created in AI will always vary. Will sometimes he might be he or she may be in the same outfit, maybe twice in 50, 60 times, but it'll always change. And what their favorite color was, or every Sunday my father wore his New York Giants sweatshirt. Well, if I'm calling him on Sunday, he's wearing that Giants sweatshirt. I can assure you of
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. But let me while we're have just a second here, I want to tell everybody your website. I will have the website for those listening. It will all be attached to this podcast, so you can't forget it. But I want to make sure that everybody has that website right now. Don't go away from this podcast. Wait until we're done and then go to the website. But it's www.theeternaldiary.com. The THE eternaldiary.com. So you all have that. And again, I will attach it so you will be able to reference it. Don't worry about writing it right now. So, Lee, tell me what specific advancements in AI allow for the recreation of personality and emotional connection with digital avatars? How has all this happened? And it seems like it's happened so fast, Lee.
In literally, um, in literally, we're just in the 7 months or 6 months that we've really been at this, we have seen better advancements in doing this.
Hmm.
And what we're really seeing is just that the way that somebody speaks or cadence, the visual part of it is always going to be, um, we want the eyes to move. Somebody, if somebody says, my father talked with his hands all the time, my mother always talked, my mother, we want to be able to recreate that as much as we can in the environment. And technology is always going to change. We all know how many times you get on your computer or your phone, you got to do an update.
Sure.
We're always going to have to be doing updates. But what we've seen in the voice technology really has been the greatest, that it can really recreate. I mean, we went from these very robot sounding voices to almost you can't tell them apart
Yeah.
and from the real person. And that you have certain actors that their voices are being cloned so much. People like Morgan Freeman or James Earl Jones. Um,
Hmm.
you hear voices that are so similar to them. In fact, I just watched a movie where the entire introduction was an AI created um, Morgan Freeman. And at the end of his opening, he said, "By the way, I'm not Morgan Freeman." And and so, but if you listen to it, you would not be able to tell that it was not Morgan Freeman. So how do we, once we really get this, like I said, 2.5 minutes for most people, we could really we could really get the clone in great shape.
Wow. That's phenomenal. And tell me, are you able to, when people provide you the information that you asked for, can videotapes be, can that be done?
We we prefer videotape's not going to work for us in the sense that the only thing that would be extrapolated from a videotape would be the audio
Okay,
because
it's so digital. So if it
right.
were
So
put
we
on,
wanted so if that was what it is, we would tell there are going to be guidelines. So like if you have a DVD, there are always, and we know that there are people that are very not technical, but in
yeah,
every town in America, there's some guy that does conversion, and then once they convert it to a little flash drive, you take 10 movies and 10 videos that you have in the collection, put to a flash drive. You can mark it in and out, and then save that, and you could upload just your audio, you could upload the audio video, and then we'll extrapolate the video out and just take the audio, clean it up. Um, you know, audio from the 80s is much different than audio from the 90s, much different
sure.
than the audio from the 2000s. Just we went from these like very bassy microphones at weddings. It's like, I want to wish, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and to very clean audio that gets recorded into a camera through a microphone, and the better quality we have. I always say voice messages from the past five
are
six years
perfect.
are always the best
Huh.
because the voice is going to sound like it does on the phone when
Hmm.
we do that. It's going to sound
Yeah,
very real.
yeah, yeah, amazing. So, can you walk us through the process for a family to create an eternal soul for a loved one, either before or after they pass?
Okay, so let's start with after they pass because
Okay.
um I I've been called a ghoul because I'm waiting for somebody to die on the other
Oh, well,
side.
yeah,
So you lose a parent, you lose a loved one, spouse, and you hear about Eternal Diary, you go to the website, you read about what it is. There'll be um, a login feature that you'll be able to register. Once you register, you will everything will be done. You could do it on your phone, but I recommend it definitely on the computer because you're going to be uploading a lot of information. And we all know that trying to use a smartphone and attaching something sometimes is not the easiest thing. So you
Right.
sit in front of your computer, you can either type it or you can record it in audio, and we will convert those files directly to data that would look like a giant Word document that could be hundreds of pages long. Like I said, it does not have to be done in the linear fashion. You could tell 100 different stories from 60 different years, and they don't have to be in any kind of order. You could, and each person, so let's say you have a family, um, let's say somebody's mother passes. You have um, two children and multiple grandchildren, maybe spouse is still alive, maybe siblings still alive. So
Hmm.
you have all these people that could participate in this. And so once you register, there's going to be an account name, very similar to how you have, if you have a Ring doorbell or something, it's going to be the same kind of login of how you get to your information. With that, everybody's going to have their own username. So
Okay.
for my father, Robert, he'll know it's me calling because it's my username to his account, and then it will be password driven. And so my brother would be able to do the same thing. Now, we could both be talking to my father at the exact same time and having totally different conversations. My brother's not going to be able to call and say the line's busy. It's not going to go to my dad's voicemail. He's
Yeah.
going to, it's going to, so you can have five people communicating in five different conversations. What we're working on right now is what we call multi-user in the place. So
Okay.
if I'm sitting with my son and we call my father, voice recognition will be there that I could say, "Hey, Dad, I'm here with Jake," and be like, "Hey, Jake, how you doing?" And so when Jake talks, he'll be able to recognize the difference in the voice.
In the
So
voice.
right. So we're working on that technology right now, which on release over the summer we should be in voice recognition because it works the same way as Alexa or Siri in the same technology
Sure.
out there.
Sure. Yeah. So how do you see Eternal Diary? How do you see it as a tool to help people with grief and grief therapy and even emotional healing? How do you see? I know you've thought about
Yeah,
this, and it's all
of
a part
course.
of your plan.
And it's a great question, Jim. I think that what when we were really looking at this grief therapy, I think that it's never going to replace the person that's gone. But what
Yeah.
it starts to do is there's there's a healing process for somebody who could hear the voice again and have a conversation with them, even though they know it's not the person, but hearing that voice again and seeing that person on camera and that it really because we always looked at this as being that there's two sides to this, which is well, really three if you look at you know a memory as somebody's memory is beginning to fade, like my mother who has dementia, that that you can really rekindle a lot of moments like that, and so but we looked at it from the therapeutic side. You lose somebody that it's there, but it's also a legacy for grandchildren to know what grandma or grandpa sounded like if they weren't their great grandchildren that didn't grow up with them, and that you can enter about that person. They could have that same conversation, but be able to talk on their level and be able to tell them the stories that they told their children and their grandchildren, now to the great grandchildren, the same stories, but in a new or modern way of how they can do it. So there's this communication thing. Then we have the other side, which I call the novelty, but not the novelty part of where it's a joke and you're going to try to trick the person and see if it works. But
Right.
the things that the mementos and if somebody did a lot of cooking and you have those recipes, that you can have the person tell you that recipe, and at the same time, which we really haven't gotten into, is this our proprietary feed system that keeps everything modern, that keeps the kind of stories that they would read about, that what they would watch on TV. So if they were big fans of um they're big fans of a lot of women watch reality TV. If they watch, if they watch the Kardashians or something, that they would know what happened on the latest edition of the Kardashians because the feed would be telling that, and you're telling them what they like, what
Uh-huh.
newspapers they read, what political standing, so that you're not going to turn somebody from a conservative to a liberal or vice versa unless you want to. That's your choice in how you tell that story of that person. But there is that part that we want to get it right because you want to get it right. It's your stories that we're interpolating this person to be your loved one.
Sure, sure. And so in the past, we might have um, videotape. I have video family stuff of my dad. I have some audio tapes that go way back, but never before have we been able to carry on a conversation with that person that has gone.
Right.
My sister just passed just last September of a terrible cancer of the brain and passed. And, there's always so many things you want to say to those people, my parents, and so forth. So this is going to give you the ability to do just that. So let's talk about the future just a little bit. Uh,
Sure.
how do you see Eternal Diary scaling? I know, you mentioned that you want to get to, I think, 1.5 million users, and you want to make an impact globally, not just locally.
Yes. Grief is universal. There's not one language that doesn't grieve, and Eternal Diary will be able to be done very easily in any language because voice cloning of language is language, whether they're speaking French, Italian, Chinese, Hindi, it doesn't matter. We'll be able to bring it globally across the world, and for those people that want to do this, so we don't see any barrier other than people's internet connection to be able to communicate.
Yeah, it's quite a project that you're doing. Now, as far as the cost, as you're rolling this out in kind of beta form, I guess is
Yeah.
the terminology, right? You're putting together, I'm sure, your financials to make this as affordable to everybody as possible. I think you're in talking to you just a little bit, you're doing this from the heart, and that makes a big difference. So how do you see maybe the cost of this for a person that is, looking at this today and going, this is something I would like to look into further. How do you see that?
Well, when we talk about cost, what we did is we ran an analysis of something that would be somewhat close to what we're doing, which there is not a lot out there as a subscription base.
Mhm.
And so we looked at the DNA testing sites like Ancestry, where we started, and we looked at that as being that was about $30 and change per month for for users at the starting point, and then if you have more users, it goes up, and then people would, kind of taper off after a while. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to make it a single yearly subscription for people. So what we looked at was an individual user. Maybe somebody loses a spouse, maybe it's a one-on-one connection. So what we wanted to do is kind of make that a 19.99 per year, not per month, per year.
Okay.
Um, so if you wanted to do that, you could do it monthly. I think it was going to be like $1.99 a month, so it comes out to $24 instead of 20. And then For a family, unlimited users would just be $10 more.
Okay.
So that would be $29.99 for as many users in the family. And then the only other added cost, very similar to if you have doorbell cameras and things like that, which is cloud space. If you want to record those conversations that you have with the person, you could store those on onto the eternal cloud. And so that would be very similar to like a Google um, Google Drive, which would be like $2 a month, and that would just be billable. You could do it, per
Okay.
year, however you would want to do it. But that's really also we look at this that once people start to see what we're doing, we expect it to be copycats. We expect it to people to try.
Sure.
It's not that, and I say this, that what we're doing is not patentable. It's copyrightable, but it's not patentable. We're not we're not creating anything, and I like to, if you have people out there that enjoy baking, we're baking, okay? When you bake, you don't make the sugar, you don't make the flour, you follow a recipe. We're
Mhm.
following an AI recipe that works, and we're mixing different pieces together to get our final piece to where we are. We have very smart people um, that are working day in and day out to improve. So we went from where the eyes are just wide open to now they blink, the heads move a little bit. So just in in just days and weeks that we can, make people feel more lifelike
Yeah.
on the video call. But as far as I mean, cost is we know how important cost is. So when we the easiest way to get rid of the competition is to make it where the competition can't compete with your price
Right.
because nobody's going to leave something to save $2. We
Hmm.
we know that from cell phone data. Nobody leaves their cell phone carrier because they're going to save $5 over a family plan per month. So we look at that somebody's going to come in unless somebody's got the better you know better technology that says, oh, this is better. You're good, but you're not going to be able to do what we're doing and catch up to us fast enough at our prices.
No, it's so affordable, and you know, there's there's not another way to connect with the person that you've lost or the loved one that you want to connect with. So it's so unique. So, I gave your website. Of course, it's theeternaldiary.com, theeternaldiary.com. Now, if people go to the site, is everything there for them to be able to connect and move forward? What can they expect today?
Until we're in full launch mode because we're still going through security issues. Not we want to know that when we do this, we are people hear the term, especially when they're dealing with cryptocurrency blockchain, and our security system is going to be blockchain fully so that when somebody, whether it's not about paying somebody getting your credit card to 1999 because most people now are paying via either Google Pay or Apple Pay.
Sure. Mhm.
So that data, unless Apple gets hacked, that data is not coming to us. We're getting it third party. So we don't worry about it. What we do worry about is um, because we are dealing with people's voices, we are dealing with personal information, that
Yes.
we don't want there to be a hacked version that somebody could hack into somebody's account and be able to get bank routing numbers of somebody who's passed or social security data for a loved one. Those are the things that we want to be able to protect the same way that when your cameras are in the cloud, that's your stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody uses the exact same software. The difference is the login. And you have to break it up into some visual that it is like a box that your stuff is in, but it's just in the data form. So we want to know that when we're 100% ready to launch, especially at the scaling level that we're going, that everybody is well protected. But I will tell you this: there is a contact form on there. If any of your listeners and viewers have any questions, please fill out the contact form and we will get right back to you and we'll answer any questions. If you have any questions, I know, some people out there, some of your listeners may have questions on ethical, religious things. I'll be happy to have a conversation with everybody about this. This is, it's not for everybody, but for the people that want to do this, we think it's a great product and we think it will help a lot of people.
I think so too. So if there's a question that I failed to ask, Lee, if there's something I failed to point out that is important for you to let my audience know, is there something that I might have asked that I should have asked that I didn't?
Well, we cover a lot, and I think that the other side of Eternal Diary, which is for the living, we really didn't get into that a lot. We really got into if the person passed. For your audience that really is starting to talk about legacy and how, that when their time comes and the family has to clean out their house and, put everything into a box and everything, this is an opportunity to be able to give a legacy to your family that you create the stories. And this is your life that you could do, that you could pass along and have these conversations the way you want them to be told and not necessarily how the family wants them to be told. And that pricing is a little different. We're still working on that. For somebody who's still alive, will be a one-time fee to be able to, that you'll always be there, it's either going to be $59.99 or $69.99 for you to sign up for that. And then we want everybody to live a very long life. For your audience out there,
Yeah.
we want you to tell 20 years of stories, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
But when the time comes, your family will then be able to enact. The price will not go up from where it is when you sign up. So even if the price was right, it will stay the same. You can prepay for years, the same, the Christmas club. We'll just,
Yeah, well, almost like
have to worry, and it's a gift to the family. And if they want to fight after the will, and you could tell them why you left them everything, and they could ask you why you did that.
Ooh, yeah, it could get interesting, but yeah, almost like a trust. You can give them something, right, that they can have for a long, long time. Well, I think we're not too far. You're not too far from really changing lives of people when you roll this out and you're ready to do this. And I hope those who are listening today will at least give it some thought. I would love for you to talk to your friends and your family about the very kind of things that you think are going to be important to them, so you can start planning now. And let them know that Lee is here and that this isn't some futuristic thing. The Eternal Diary is here now, and explore it, and look into it. Lee, this has been a real joy. I told you it was going to be probably the most enjoyable podcast that I've done.
This has been great, and I hope your audience really takes something away. And please, if anybody has any questions, everything comes through me. So I'm not, believe me, I'm not just guy that developed this. I'm in your age group. I understand what we want to be able to pass on, and I hope that that families can really get a good, a real good feeling, and be able to communicate.
Well, again, it's been a joy. And listen, let's talk again. And
anytime, Jim. I would love to. If you have me back when we launch, I'd love to come on when we're launching.
You remind me, okay? Don't let
100%.
me forget. All right. Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you to my listeners. And if you like this, be sure to subscribe and keep watching. Appreciate you. Thank you, Lee. Have a great day.
Thank you.